Do you truly believe that after the age of 40, your life is already set in stone, that the choices you made in the past have sealed your future? Let me tell you something that might sound preposterous. A single word can completely rewrite your destiny, right here, right now. And it doesn't matter if you're deep in debt, utterly exhausted, or completely frustrated. Because what I'm about to reveal goes against everything you've ever believed about luck, effort, and destiny. The magic word is attitude. Everything I've achieved and everything you've ever experienced in life, for better or worse, is merely a reflection of how we choose to position ourselves in the world. Attitude isn't just a thought. It's not merely an emotion, and it's not solely an action. It's the unseen combination of these three elements that shapes every outcome of our existence. When I grasped this, I realized I wasn't a victim of circumstances. I was the author. Have you ever stopped to consider how many times you've held back from trying something because deep down you'd already convinced yourself it wouldn't work? That conviction wasn't reality itself, but your attitude towards it. When science suggests that our minds reproduce more than 80% of the same thoughts every day, it reveals how we create an invisible prison of repetition. Yesterday's attitude projects tomorrow's identical outcome. That's why so many people declare, "My life never changes." Their lives don't change because their attitude never changes. They wait for the world to offer proof before they'll believe. But the law is clear. The world merely returns the reflection of what you're already sending out through your vibration, and that vibration is controlled by your attitude. Attitude is the energy you transmit even before you open your mouth. It's what others sense the moment you walk into a room. That's why people with a positive attitude effortlessly attract opportunities, while others, despite working tirelessly, keep hitting the wall of scarcity. Have you ever noticed how some individuals seem to have all the luck in everything they do? That luck isn't by chance. It's the direct consequence of an attitude that opens doors, connects people, builds trust, and moves the flow of abundance. When I grasped this, I realized that changing my life wasn't about acquiring something external to me, but about realigning what I already carried within. I didn't need to wait for a promotion, an investment, or anyone's approval. I simply needed to change the way I presented myself to the world, and most importantly, to myself. Because the way you perceive yourself is how you teach others to perceive you. If within you there's a belief that you're not capable, the world will confirm that belief. But if within you there's the conviction that you deserve it, that it's possible, and that you're ready, the world will inevitably respond to that. William James from Harvard stated that the greatest discovery of his generation was realizing that human beings can change their lives by changing their mental attitude. This isn't empty philosophy. It's the foundation of all lasting change. Think about it. How many times have you believed in something with such intensity that it seemed impossible for it not to happen? And how many times have you carried doubts and fears that came true, as if they were an inevitable prophecy? What transpired there wasn't luck or bad luck, it was attitude. When you understand that attitude is the cause and not the effect, the game changes. You stop waiting for the world to improve before you refine your stance. You decide to improve your demeanor now, knowing that the world has no choice but to reflect that shift back to you. It's like a mirror. There's no point complaining about the reflection. You need to change the expression you're offering. The magic word might sound overly simple, but it's precisely its simplicity that makes it powerful. The question is, what attitude are you choosing at this exact moment? Because whether you like it or not, it's that attitude which will write the next chapter of your life. Many believe that by the age of 40, life is stamped, that opportunities have passed, doors have closed, and energy and chances belong solely to the young. I say this is an illusion constructed by a defeatist attitude. Solid research shows that entrepreneurs who create high-growth companies aren't necessarily the youngest. The average age of founders in the highest growth businesses hovers around 42 years old, and for the 0.1% of companies that explode in growth, the average is approximately 45 years old. This means that the experience, network, clarity, and attitude accumulated in middle age frequently increase, rather than decrease, the likelihood of success. If you find yourself saying, "My time has passed," ask yourself, what carries more weight, your age in years or the attitude you hold about that age? Ray Kroc found the opportunity that changed his life when he was past 50. Vera Wang shifted careers and became a renowned figure after 40. These stories aren't mystical exceptions. They're proof that time favors those who know how to leverage experience as a springboard, and that the real blockage is internal, not external. The fears I've encountered most often, and that I myself once carried, are predictable. What if I fail now and lose everything? What about family, my job, the bills? Who will take me seriously at this age? What if my health doesn't allow it? These questions are legitimate, but they become springboards to inertia when they're turned into excuses. The difference between the person who reinvents themselves and the one who settles lies in a practical, deliberate shift in attitude. Changing the image you hold of yourself, and then acting in alignment with that new image. There's a simple technique I've used for decades to reprogram my attitude, building a clear mental image and imbuing it with emotion until my body and behavior follow suit. I visualize a simple blueprint of my own mind and body, like a guiding figure to which I direct concentrated energy. Imagine a funnel of energy entering through the crown of your head and forming on your mind screen the exact picture of what you want to be. The behavior, the routine, the voice, the level of confidence. Then I let this image seep into my subconscious, where emotion solidifies the idea, and then allow my body to begin acting in alignment with it. This process, conscious image, emotion, bodily vibration, action, is the foundation for changing ingrained habits and consequently changing results. In practice, for someone over 40 who wants to turn the page, I suggest this with concrete steps anyone can apply right now. For 10 minutes every morning, build and feel the desired scene, where you already have the position, the income, the routine. Write 3 possible actions for that day that reinforce this image: an email, a phone call, a proposal. Dress and behave during these actions as if you were already that person, and treat people with the attitude of success. Praise honestly, offer value, listen attentively. Replace continuous monitoring of your bank balance with a measurement of effort. How many quality conversations, how many proposals, how many ideas tested. These micro habits cause attitude to shift even before your bank account responds. Before you dismiss the power of visualization, know that research shows that image-rich visions elevate motivation and commitment to goals. The science of mental imagery isn't a promise of magic. It's a tool that increases focus, emotion, and persistence, ingredients that transform intention into results. At the same time, be wary of facile statistics about how many thousands of repeated thoughts we have each day. Many numbers circulate without solid backing. The truth is that the mind tends to cling to patterns, and that's where the deliberate practice of imagery and actions breaks the cycle. If you want a public example of someone who used visualization as a concrete tool, recall the story of the actor who wrote himself a check dated for the future and maintained the vision with actions that led him to the lead role that paid him precisely that amount. It's not scientific proof in itself, but it illustrates the power of aligning image and action. I know what I'm talking about because it wasn't mere theory for me. When I decided to launch my own service business, I had no degree and no official business experience. What I did have was a new attitude, a clear image of what my day would be like, the value I would deliver, and the decision to act even when nothing seemed promising. Within a few months, that attitude attracted clients, generated referrals, and to my own surprise and delight, transformed a small operation into an income I had never expected so quickly. The feeling was one of relief and deep gratitude, but above all, surprise at the difference a change in attitude makes in the material world. If you accept the challenge of treating age as an advantage, I propose this: 7 days to begin shifting your attitude. Days 1 through 3. Build the image and emotionally engage with it. 10 minutes morning and evening. Days 4 through 6. Execute 3 daily micro-actions aligned with this image: contacts, proposals, small tests. Day 7. Take stock of what has shifted in your vibration and which action brought the greatest return. I don't promise instant miracles. I promise that if you follow this roadmap, your perception and your opportunities will begin to open up. Ask yourself now, will you let your age dictate what you deserve, or will you choose an attitude that transforms your next decade? There was a time when I believed my life was limited to a destiny of frustrations. I worked for the Toronto Fire Department, and although it was a respectable job, I didn't feel it was leading me anywhere. The pay was low, I accumulated debt, and I saw no prospects for growth. One day, while using a bandsaw, I suffered an accident that left me with a thumb injury. It was something seemingly minor, but inside me, it sounded like a verdict. I thought, this is it. My life is over. Nothing will ever change for me. That physical pain seemed to confirm the silent ache I carried in my soul, the conviction that I had no future. It was in this state of hopelessness that I met a man who changed everything by sharing a book with me, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I still remember the feeling of opening those pages for the first time. Something awakened within me, as if each sentence nudged me, saying, "You don't have to accept what you're living. There's another way to think." Until then, I had never heard anyone state so clearly that thought shapes reality. I used to believe my life was defined by what I had, what I lacked, and the limitations I had inherited. Suddenly, I was faced with the idea that everything could begin within me, in the way I chose to think. It wasn't a magical, overnight change. At first, every word sounded beautiful, but it seemed too distant. I'd returned to the reality of debts, overdue bills, and frustrations. But even so, I kept reading, rereading, and taking notes. I decided I would hold on to that concept, even without knowing how to apply it. And little by little, I began to change my attitude. Instead of repeating to myself that I was stuck, I started visualizing possibilities. Instead of viewing my debts as a life sentence, I began to see them as temporary. And most importantly, I acted differently. That's how my first cleaning service company was born. I had no experience, no formal business education, and not even confidence at the start. But I had something I had lacked until then: a renewed attitude. With every client who accepted my service, I remembered what I had read. Success begins in the mind. And that propelled me forward. By the end of the first year, against all odds, I had made more than $100,000. I knew almost nothing about business, but I had changed what truly mattered: my way of thinking and acting. This experience taught me that the difference between someone who remains trapped and someone who breaks free isn't a lack of money, a lack of education, or the accident or problem they encounter. It's the decision to change one's attitude even when everything seems to be against you. When I got hurt, I had 2 options: use it as an excuse to give up, or use it as a turning point. I chose the latter. and life responded to that choice with opportunities I hadn't even seen before. The truth is, everyone has experienced moments when an accident, a loss, or a disappointment seemed to put an end to their story. But it's not the events themselves that close the chapters. It's the attitude you adopt afterward that determines whether it's the end or just the beginning of a transformation. That cut on my finger could have been the symbol of my failure, but it became the mark of my new beginning. And every time I look at it, even today, I'm reminded that wounds can be reminders of our strength, not our weakness. The lesson I carry from that phase of my life is clear. When you change your attitude, the world changes with you. I emerged from darkness into a path of light, not because I found the perfect opportunity, but because I decided to see life differently. And from that moment on, opportunities began to appear. Have you ever noticed how your money worries start to dictate everything else? I've seen it countless times. Someone looks at their bank account, feels that tightness in their chest, and immediately all their thoughts, all their attention, all their behavior begin to orbit around that lack. It's as if the mind sets up a siege and says, "Alert, financial danger," and then everything that could be used to plan, create, or invest is redirected to put out fires. I always say, don't let present results control your thinking, because when you allow that, you create a self-perpetuating cycle. This cycle has a well-defined mechanism. Scarcity captures attention and consumes what's called mental bandwidth. When you're bogged down by financial worries, your ability to solve complex problems, see opportunities, and make calm decisions is reduced. Not due to laziness, but due to a lack of available mental resources. Experimental studies have shown that worrying about money reduces cognitive performance exactly like a sleepless night or intense distraction. In other words, poverty, or the feeling of scarcity, imposes a tax on your ability to think clearly. This isn't a mystical idea, it's scientific evidence. And the harm isn't just intellectual, it's practical. When you allow your bank balance to dictate your emotional state, you prioritize immediate relief over sustained gain. You accept smaller jobs, refuse long-term investments, don't negotiate contracts, miss deadlines, and avoid uncomfortable conversations that could generate partnerships. Behavioral economics also shows us that money buys life evaluation. Satisfaction with one's life rises with income. But it doesn't automatically buy emotional happiness beyond a certain point. There's a threshold where growing wealthier financially brings less emotional return than we expect. This means that focusing solely on the account number without working on attitude and strategy often leaves us without results and without peace. Now, for the practical part, how do you break this cycle? First, it's necessary to recognize that the mind responds to images and emotions long before it responds to a rational plan. Effective visualization mobilizes brain regions linked to perception and movement, meaning when you imagine what you want in detail, the brain responds as if it were already practicing it. That's why simply thinking positive isn't enough. It's essential to construct vivid, emotionally charged images and then transform these images into concrete intentions that the body can execute. The neuroscience of mental imagery shows that this process activates real brain networks. It's not an ineffectual fantasy. Second, transform visualization into planned action. Don't just create the mental picture. Add an if-then statement at the end. Use mental contrasting with implementation intentions, WHOOP, MCII. Imagine your desire clearly, identify the biggest internal obstacle you anticipate, and write a specific action of the type, if X happens, then I will do Y. Studies show that this combination, visualizing the goal and preparing concrete plans for obstacles, greatly increases the likelihood of executing the necessary actions. This is the antidote to the tunnel of scarcity. You maintain the image and at the same time create automatic routes to act when your mind enters panic mode. Third, create slack in the system. Research on scarcity emphasizes a concept I always repeated in my classes: slack, a margin of safety. Those who live without slack spend all their energy managing crises. Those who create small safety buffers, a modest emergency fund, automated savings, reduction of impulsive spending, recover mental bandwidth to plan and seize opportunities. It's not about glamour, it's emotional engineering, less panic, more space for strategic decisions. Fourth, look at real-life examples to understand the dynamic. There are powerful stories of those who used imagery plus action to change their destiny. For instance, an actor who wrote himself a check dated in the future and worked with the conviction of that image until the role arrived. The story became emblematic because it shows how clear intention combined with persistent effort transforms results. On the other hand, there are famous cases of individuals who amassed wealth but lost it due to a lack of financial discipline and consistent habits. People who, despite talent and opportunities, failed to manage their own attitude towards money and ultimately collapsed financially. These narratives serve as reminders. External success without internal routine and habits is unsustainable. Immediate and concrete practice you can apply now. Stop for 10 minutes and do this. First, clearly write down the scene you desire, not in vague terms, but with sensory details. Where you are, what you see, who is present, what the sound is, what the feeling in your body is. Second, identify your biggest internal obstacle, fear, doubt, lack of knowledge, and write the phrase, if obstacle, then specific action. This converts vision into an action trigger. Third, immediately automate from 1% to 5% of your money into a separate account. Automation creates slack and removes immediate temptation. Fourth, for 7 days record 2 things daily, 1 aligned behavior. I called, I sent a proposal, I studied for 20 minutes, and 1 different sensation you noticed. This small blueprint aligns mind, emotion, and body. It's a direct application of research and practices that interrupt the scarcity trap. If you allow scarcity to dictate your pace, nothing changes. If you build images with emotion, reduce immediate noise through financial slack, and transform vision into if-then plans, you reclaim your mental bandwidth and begin operating at a level where opportunities are seen and leveraged, and with that, results start to respond to the new attitude you've decided to incorporate. Science has already proven that how we think and feel alters not only our financial results and relationships, but also our health, our longevity, and even how our body responds to daily situations. Research from the Mayo Clinic showed that people with an optimistic attitude live, on average, 10 years longer than those who cultivate a pessimistic outlook. This is no coincidence. When we maintain a positive mindset, our bodies respond by releasing substances that bolster the immune system, diminish stress, and enhance our ability to tackle challenges. Conversely, a negative attitude fosters an internal environment ripe for illness, fatigue, and even depression. Consider this. How many times have you woken up feeling disheartened, mentally rehearsing that the day would be tough, that the bills wouldn't balance, that nothing would go right? In such a state, it's as if every cell in your body receives a command to prepare for mere survival, not for prosperity. Your body goes on high alert, muscles tense, vital energy drains away. And the intriguing part is, on that very day, your likelihood of genuinely experiencing negative situations increases because your selective perception actively seeks to confirm the image you've already accepted within your mind. Now imagine the opposite. Upon opening your eyes, you consciously choose a new attitude. Instead of replaying automatic phrases of failure, You begin to visualize the day unfolding smoothly. You feel gratitude for what you already possess, and you place yourself in a vibrant state of enthusiasm. Your brain releases dopamine and serotonin, neurotransmitters linked to pleasure and motivation. This generates greater readiness, enhanced mental clarity, and increased openness to opportunities. Small shifts in perspective start to accumulate until they blossom into significant transformations. This isn't merely a matter of superficial positive thinking. It's science, it's physiology. A study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences demonstrated that individuals who cultivate positive emotions possess longer telomeres, structures that safeguard DNA, which translates to slower aging and a healthier life. Your attitude, quite literally, dictates how your body ages. I've personally experienced this firsthand. When I was drowning in debt and stuck in dead-end jobs, my health mirrored my inner state. I constantly felt exhausted, devoid of energy, plagued by persistent aches, and despite all my efforts, nothing seemed to improve. It was only when I decided to shift my mental image and cultivate a different attitude, even though the reality around me still spelled scarcity, that I noticed my body responding. My energy returned, my enthusiasm soared, and I found myself able to work longer hours without feeling that debilitating weight that used to drag me down. It was as if every cell was aligning with a new vibration of prosperity. And don't assume this applies solely to those pursuing financial gain or professional success. Research conducted by the Harvard School of Public Health revealed that individuals with positive attitudes not only have a greater likelihood of achieving their financial objectives, but also report higher satisfaction in relationships and a stronger sense of overall well-being. In other words, changing your attitude is like pressing a button that simultaneously activates health, wealth, and happiness. Now reflect with me. How many opportunities have you let slip away simply because your attitude prevented you from seeing beyond the immediate problem? How many times did you give up before even trying, convinced you lacked sufficient energy, time, or talent? What if instead you had cultivated an inner stance of confidence, certainty, and positive expectation? Wouldn't the outcomes have been entirely different? This is the magic of attitude. It establishes the very foundation upon which your life is built. It doesn't matter if you're already past 40, 50, or 60. Science unequivocally states that the brain is plastic, capable of reprogramming itself at any stage of life. With every thought you choose, with every emotion you nurture, you strengthen neuronal connections that sculpt your reality. And similarly, each time you stubbornly cling to negative patterns, you reinforce the invisible prisons that keep you trapped in the same spot. You might be thinking, but it's so incredibly difficult to change after living the same way for so many years. And it's true, it isn't easy. If it were simple, everyone would already be living in abundance and fulfillment. But it is possible, and I am living proof. The key lies in understanding that change begins with what you repeat every single day, in the seemingly insignificant small choices of attitude that, accumulated over time, rewrite anyone's destiny. Therefore, when someone suggests that attitude is merely a matter of smiling more or reciting optimistic phrases, they're missing the profound depth of this truth. Attitude is science. It's spirituality. It's the bridge connecting the invisible to the visible. It is the silent language to which the universe unfailingly responds. And once you learn to wield it to your advantage, there is no limit to what you can achieve. What you need to take away from this is simple yet profound. Attitude is the magical word that rewrites destiny. It serves as the filter that transmutes thought into emotion, emotion into action, and action into results. Nothing truly shifts until your attitude shifts first. And when that happens, everything begins to align: your health, your finances, your relationships, your very purpose. Now, as you allow this truth to resonate within you, the next video is already appearing on your screen, where you will ascend another step in your wisdom evolution and become 1% better than you are right now. Thank you for being here with me today. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.